Next is public comment for items that are not on the agenda this evening.
Mr. Mayor, we have several public comment cards. I'm going to call up two members of the public, if you could just queue up to the person who's at the podium. The first speaker is Seymour. The next speaker is Jeffrey Tong.
Tonight, I am delivering a parking petition signed by nearly 3,000 San Bruno residents. Thank you, Russell Steins, for walking every weekend for the past 14 weeks. I'd like to thank Mike Garza from Grand Leader and Desiree Angelique from the Hulu Studio on San Mateo Avenue, Jimmy Evangelista and Do Nuager from Huntington Park, Sandra Perez Vargas, Reina Burgos, and Tim O'Brien from The Heart, and Bertha Molina from downtown neighborhoods for collecting signatures. We thank thousands of San Bruno residents for their support. The stories we heard about their concerns landing on deaf ears and their emails and phone calls to the city going unanswered were compelling. We are here tonight because our pleas to address the parking problems in San Bruno have gone unanswered. Mayor Medina, many have asked you repeatedly to help with parking. Before being elected, you publicly stated you would address the parking issues. You said you would open lines of communication. Sadly, once elected, you stopped returning mine and other emails and phone calls. We voted for you because we believed in you and the promises you made. Nearly a year has passed since you were sworn in as mayor and 13 years on the council. What have you done to improve the parking in San Bruno? We are not against development. We value the contributions to our city by the developers in improving our downtown and other parts of the city. However, we want this done with care to protect our neighborhoods. We have asked for permitted streets to protect the existing neighborhoods, something supported by the Sierra Club. Greater enforcement of current parking regulations and code enforcement. We don't understand why the mayor will not support the implementation of the TSPC's parking permit plan reviewed more than a year ago. More baffling to us, the mayor was on the subcommittee that designed the plan. A request for greater parking enforcement and a review of TCP parking requirements have been made by me and many other residents for many years. 3 council members have shown support for a review of the TCP. Why doesn't the mayor support this? 406 and 14 San Mateo Avenue is nearing completion. The mayor and 2 council members gave their approval for commercial parking requirements being waived and residential parking being diluted. When finished, this project will devastate the heart of San Bruno. Maybe we should change the city's motto to a city with a heart and its surrounding arteries clogged by cars. Now you are rushing to approve more projects without the infrastructure needed to protect us. Where are the ride shares, the last mile shuttles, and the bike lanes to support our vision of people moving here without cars? Please tell us what the city plan is to ensure the new residents come with fewer cars. At a council meeting in June, the mayor stated, and I quote, "This is San Bruno. We respect each other. I and many others don't feel respected. We feel belittled and ignored. We deliver our petition in hopes that you begin to respect the concerns of your constituents. We submit these signatures of residents asking for a review of the TCP parking requirements before any new development is approved. Dozens of every..."
Please start to wind it up, Stephen.
What's
Please.
that?
Could you please start to wind it up, please?
I thought you might ask me to, and I'm almost done.
Okay, thank you.
Dozens of every council members, nearby neighbors signed. Residents from every neighborhood have signed. We have nearly 3,000 signatures. We hope that you listen to the people who helped vote you in.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker. Let's keep the no applause during this so everybody can speak. And it did already go over 3 minutes. You'll see the yellow light. It gives you about 30 seconds, and then the red light comes to. But to be fair, I just wanted to the city clerk, if you don't mind, please, Melissa. So it had gone over, but I want to be fair to everybody to give the same opportunity. So who is next? Mr.
Jeffrey Tong, followed by Russell Steins.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, I'll compensate by being a little shorter. The people are here tonight to argue for more parking. Parking is due to excess cars, which is in part due to Samtrans dysfunction. Car share is not economically viable in low-density suburbs. San Bruno has no policy to accommodate bike share or scooter share. Despite a growing population, Samtrans ridership is decreasing. Clearly, Samtrans does not service the public, yet it mandates a total monopoly. For 30 years, Measure A tax has exacerbated traffic congestion since 1988 and has another 15 years to go. Nevertheless, Samtrans as Measure W is needed to fix the traffic congestion which it created. Mayor Medina, I ask you as member of Samtrans Board of Directors to ask your colleagues to eliminate Samtrans no competition mandate, or as mayor of San Bruno, to either give them more parking. Unless we see evidence of real change, we will oppose Measure W, Samtrans sales tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And Jeffrey, for the record, I am not on the Samtrans board. Next, please.
Good evening, Russell Steins, Reed Avenue. Tonight, 3,000 residents are asking you to stand up for this community and make all new development over 10 units parking self-sufficient. Since its conception, San Bruno has made many incorrect decisions. We've built streets too narrow and driveways too short. Our neighbors on the seaside are already fighting and being divided over parking. This is no way for us to build a community. And our existing businesses are suffering trying to make a living in the downtown. With this said, we must learn from our past mistakes and move forward with consciousness. So please, when the people of San Bruno okay a new development, let's make sure that developer has proposed a building that will have minimal impact on the existing residents' quality of life. We ask you to move forward on this as soon as possible and redefine the parking requirements in the TCP and protect this community. While we welcome all new residents, we only ask that they treat us with the same kindness as we will them. San Brunans have been through much, so please help us continue to make this the kind, conscious, and loving community like no other. Thank you kindly.
Thank you. Next, please.
Simon Missoula, followed by Albert Ramos.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I wanted to take a minute to thank you for your work for our city and to propose a few ideas I had on parking. When I moved to this town 20 years ago, the streets were very different. It was easy to move throughout the streets. It was easy to park on them. 20 years later, it isn't. In a way, that can be a good thing. That means our city's growing, but it does mean that we have to deal with what do we do about that. And I know that some development of the downtown area is a positive step for our city, and proportional parking is a necessary part of that. I understand how developers typically will sometimes want to have fewer parking spaces than might be necessary, and I leave it to your good judgment to regulate that as best as you can. Of the potential ideas of how to deal with parking, it's a little bit harebrained, but I'll throw it out anyway. Could there be a requirement that homeowners park at least one of their vehicles in their driveway? I see a lot of driveways without vehicles in them. I see hardly any spots on the streets any longer. It might be unpopular, but maybe that's a potential solution. I know that there have been some complaints about citizens asking for parking enforcement, for the city to come ticket and potentially tow people, and the response to that has not been robust. Maybe that is an area to look into. I've lived in San Francisco prior to San Bruno. There's good parts of that. One thing that was awful was parking. I would never want San Bruno to be like San Francisco in terms of parking, where it was difficult to park anywhere and there were penalties depending on what zone you're in. It just gets awful. But at the same time, maybe some enforcement of violations of parking could benefit our citizens and could add some revenue to the city. Those are my ideas. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Next, please.
Albert Ramos, followed by Ryan Mersney.
Good evening, everybody. I'm fairly new to San Bruno. I've been here for a couple of years. And I know that in these 2 years that I've lived here, my wife and I wrote several letters to the town hall. And also we called several times to complain about the same issue, parking issue. We live in 828 Mills Avenue, and it's getting a little bit old that it's becoming a war between neighbors to park, and not because of the neighbors' situation, not that because of the neighbors' cars per se, but because it's become the street where everybody goes to park their car when they want to board Caltrain. So I think a simple solution would be meter parking and permits, and that's all I'm asking for is for you guys to consider this option or do something about the situation with parking on Caltrain, especially now that they're going to build a couple of buildings around the block. And I'm all for that. Clean the neighborhood. It's going to be amazing, but please consider that we are at war between neighbors because of parking, and that's not something that neighbors should feel about each other when considering parking their cars on the street. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Ryan Mersney, followed by Deborah Franzella.
Good evening, Ryan Mersney, Keynes Avenue. A petition tonight has been presented to the City Council with thousands of signatories. The last time this many signatures was presented to the City Government was a petition concerning the Crossing Hotel. Why I mention this previous petition is that the City Council, a City Council member, told me on numerous occasions that people signing that petition didn't know what they were signing. I have taken personal umbrage at that contention since I personally collected over 200 of those signatures. While there are major differences between the two petitions, the wording on the parking petition is very clear and concise. There is no way an argument can be made that the signatories did not understand or even understand what they were signing. To even insinuate such a thing would be an insult to the intelligence of everyone. I hope no one uses this argument as a distraction from the real issues. While you might not agree with the parking petition or think it's feasible, this is not the work of rabble-rousers. This is clearly a plea from a huge number of residents to do something. None of you ran on, or did the voters elect you for inaction. It has been 315 days since the current council has been sworn in. I and many others think that it is more than enough time to do the bare minimum. Starting to enforce parking regulations, current parking regulations and current code violations vigorously in hope of alleviating some of the parking problems. I also think there's more than enough time to move the discussion forward involving a parking permit program. I and others look forward to something positive happening and happening soon. I would also like to ask you, or discuss, at a previous meeting on parking, you offered some solutions short of a parking permit program. One of them was to get rid of the permit fee for expanding driveways, curb cuts into driveways. It's been quite a while. I haven't seen any movement on that issue. Also, we discussed about having on Channel 1 and through nextdoor.com, somebody from the city explaining how to report anonymously airport parkers and people who have inoperable vehicles in their driveways so that we can get them out and free up some parking. And that hasn't been done to my knowledge either. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deborah Franzella, followed by Anna Villalobos.
Hi, my name is Deborah Franzella. I've lived here for many, many years. I live on Hensley Avenue. Love the area, except for the speeding on our block is ridiculous at night. There's no police officers around anymore. Not saying anything bad to them, but we need some things taken care of, and I don't see anybody doing it. So I'd like the parking permits. Doesn't bother me. In fact, it'll probably be beneficial, but the speeding and stuff like that is crazy. And nobody goes up there, so nobody sees all of it every single night. And then they do the little things in the street, and it just is a mess. So I'm hoping we can get that taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm nervous.
You did perfect.
Anna Villalobos, followed by Sandra Perez Vargas.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ana Molina Villalobos. I am a lifelong resident of the city of San Bruno. I've lived in my home for the last 31 years on the 600 block of Green Avenue. When we first moved into our home, parking was never an issue. Never. Over the years, it's become gradually worse. I've noticed in recent years that parking is a premium. Neighbors that never had issues have issues like some others have spoken to, mostly because they're trying to find a place to find for their car. We live near the airport, so we see people drive up in their cars, call an Uber, pull out their luggage and get into an Uber and go to the airport. We've got vehicles abandoned in our neighborhood that don't belong in our neighborhood, which, again, that was never an issue before. So people are looking to find parking wherever they can find it, and it's impacting everybody. Part of adding to that is now the development that's taking place, and I understand we've passed the transit corridor measure, and we're trying to provide more affordable housing to our residents and others in the area. What I would like to ask of the City Council is that you carefully consider how the development is taking place. Developers come in from out of county, out of state, and they're here to come into our community and build something and make money and leave. But they don't take into consideration the long-term effects that those developments have and how they impact our community. The face of our community is changing with these developments, and that's fine. We have to move forward. But as someone before me spoke, we don't want to become like San Francisco. It might be a good idea to look at the other neighboring cities on our peninsula and how they're handling the same issue, and somewhere find a happy medium where we can balance responsible development to meet the housing needs of our community, but at the same time keeping the quality of life for the residents of San Bruno what it always has been. Everybody deserves to live in a peaceful, happy, clean, calm environment, and changes are coming that are causing a negative impact. I'm going to speak to something that's not really about the parking, but also about in terms of the development and the housing that's being brought in. I think it's important that we also provide affordable housing to our first responders. With this influx of more people coming into our community, we need to add housing available to our police, our firefighters, medical professionals, maybe even teachers, because these are people that make the quality of our life and serve and protect us. And they're a forgotten group of people. And a lot of our first responders are commuting 1 or 2 hours to get here to work for us. And with all this development going on, I would like to hope that the city can work with developers to maybe set aside some housing for our first responders so that when we need them, they're here for us. Sort of on a tangent, but I wanted to add that in. And I just hope that with the development that takes place, that you take into account all of our needs and the good of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Sandra Perez Vargas.
Hi, I've lived in San Bruno for 24 years now, and when I arrived, 200 block of Mastic, it was a lovely, lovely street. People were respectful. Now, because of the parking situation, people aren't very respectful at all. They are blocking people's driveways. I've called the police numerous times, and people just think it's okay. If it's available, they're just going to take it. So I'm wondering, if we can't control what's going on right now, how are we supposed to control buildings that might not have adequate parking? When they roll out, that's going to increase our issues. Our quality of life is threatened right now, and it's threatened because we're not hearing you guys tell us what we need to hear, that you will take the appropriate steps to ensure our quality of life continues with the new development. I live just south of where the old movie theater was, and a development is going up there, and it looks beautiful, I'll have to say that. But not enough parking was designated, and that's going to directly impact us. And right now, it's so hard to maneuver around the streets as it is. People are blocking behind their own driveways because there's no parking. Well, that's great and dandy, but if a car is coming from their driveway onto the sidewalk, there is no passing point anymore. As a pedestrian, I'm forced to walk out into the streets to get around cars. People in wheelchairs, Rico, you know our friend Steve, we've been talking about this for years. I've challenged many people to go out in a wheelchair and maneuver my streets, maneuver them at night. I challenged Connie Jackson. She never did it, and I believe you said you might do it. So before you approve more parking that might roll out, maneuver our streets, and let's see how far you can get in a wheelchair, in a stroller, and really think about it. Because if you don't have an issue on your street, more power to you. We're happy for you. We have problems. And after 24 years, I would think that our government would listen to us. I mean, we're told it's easy to hear lip service saying, we want to hear from you, we want to help, but when we call and write, it's just like, what, do you expect help? You expect us to listen to you? It's really difficult. I would like to see the laws that we have now enforced. I don't think we should have to call the police every time a car is blocking a driveway if the police have already seen it, if they're driving by and they see it. A lot of times when the police have come out to our streets to handle a situation like a drunk driver, 4 police officers come in, they stay in the neighborhood for a half hour, and once they realize there's no danger, they can look around our street and say, holy spirits, everybody's parked illegally, and maybe start issuing tickets. And we're requesting this, not me, not just a few people. There's thousands of people. Some are with Jackie Spear that couldn't be here tonight, but they want you to know, we need you to help us, not give us lip service. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Was there anybody else that wanted to speak on any item that was not on the agenda that maybe didn't have an opportunity to fill out a speaker's card? Okay. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for your comments. That's going to conclude on the public comment. And then I'd like to turn it over to our city manager in regards to some of the comments.
Sure. Hi, to the City Council and members of the public, Javon Grogan, City Manager. So I've been on the job just under 3 months, and when I arrived in San Bruno, I met with every council member individually, and they all said something to the effect of welcome, and we have to do something about parking. And so we hear you, and we have been doing a lot of work discussing and reviewing a lot of the proposals from the last time council met on this, and we will be scheduling a town hall in January to talk about development and parking related issues citywide, but in particular east of El Camino. We will discuss a number of the things that have been mentioned tonight. Absolutely increasing enforcement. I agree. We can step up our enforcement of existing rules. We will talk about and present information on a residential parking program. I think that through those conversations, it will be important to really the city and residents to walk hand in hand. Any strategy we implement will certainly affect the residents that live there. We will also present information on our downtown parking management plan, where we've received nearly a close to final draft. We'll have the final by then, and we'll present some of the analysis in that, which really is showing that currently the parking situation that many of you attested to that's significant is not being caused by downtown. It's being caused by the neighborhoods. And so the solution really lies within the neighborhoods, and it relies in really a partnership between the city and the community. And I heard that sentiment expressed along with the frustration. So we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about the pros and cons of a residential parking program. Those programs are typically used when it's someone else causing the majority of the parking problem, i.e. a BART station or a Caltrain station. But what we know now is at night, when Caltrain and BART are not running, there's an extremely significant parking problem. And so through a residential parking program, if we limit the number of cars that can park on the street by dwelling unit, that's going to have a significant effect on properties and potentially property values. And so we want to talk about that with the community, and there's no silver bullet, and I think we all recognize that. But we need to walk hand in hand. We need to talk about the implications of every strategy, and really, I would like for us to come out with a set of things that we will implement. But it's going to require all of us, and it's going to require, frankly, the residents of that community to likely change their behavior. and potentially the number of cars that they own. I've talked to a number of you in this room, and some of you say, I know my neighbor next door. They have X number of people living in the house, and they have 6 cars. Or they have 2 people living in the house, and they have 4 cars, and they don't park in their driveway. And so this is a community problem, and we need to all address it together. And so you have my commitment. You have certainly the direction from council that they have given to me, and the staff is working on it, and with your help, we'll walk hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you.